Hey guys, my name is Chris McManus and I'm the owner of Inline Landscaping, and I'd like to welcome you all to our winter prep meeting. This will be the first video that we're shooting, and it's about putting the plow on and taking it off of the truck with the proper procedure. The most important things when you're connecting the plow to the truck is making sure that you're lined up. If it's not lined up, you guys are going to be battling it all night long. So Sebastian's going to drive the truck in, and we're going to line it up and go through the steps to make things easy. Bring it in, Sebastian. Yep. Make sure it's lined up nice. Everything's going in. Keep coming. Turn the wheels that way a little bit and give it a bit of a push. Perfect. So what we'll do now, you can turn it off. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through the procedures on connecting this nice and easy. Number one is obviously getting everything lined up. Number two is going to be always making sure this post is down. If you get to this stage here and the post is up on this, the cylinder is up, what you have to do is connect the electrical connections, both electrical connections, and then float it with the remote on the inside so that you can push this down and then proceed with the connecting of everything. So right now we are all set up and everything is looking good. So I'm just going to start connecting things. So the first thing we're going to do, so our first step here is we lift the handle. It will allow the pins to go in. They're spring loaded. We just have to push up, and on the frame of this, give it a little shake. Make sure both pins go in, because a lot of times only one pin will go in, and then you'll think they're both in, and you're going to be in for a world of problems. Okay, so again, another super important fact here is that we have to lift the post in the middle. So we pull this pin out, lift this up as high as it'll go, and make sure it latches in. The bottom of the post has to be up above the A-frame down here, or else when you're going in and out of parking lots, if it's hanging down at all, it will catch and cause damage, and just going to make your night longer. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the connections for the plow to the truck. Always make sure that you are nice and clean, and if you see any green, it's going to need to be either cleaned up or reported back to our maintenance. We will take the plow connector and then the truck one, pull them apart, and you also have to make sure that this here goes through a proper routing spot here. So connect these up. Nice and easy. We'll come around to the other side. Pull this one out and connect this into it as well. So at this point we're pretty much connected with everything. The post is up, the electrical connections have been inspected and put together, and we're ready to test the plow. So now we're ready to test the plow. Sebastian's going to hop into the truck here and we're going to give it a run through. You can pick it up. Okay, so at this point we are all together. Everything is solid. Quick visual inspection. There's no leaks on anything. All the connections together. Nothing is hanging down on the plow. It's looking good. So we'll proceed with the full movement of the plow. So if you could go left and right with it. Okay, now bring the wings out. Okay, and retract them. And at this point here, when the wings are going out, you'll have full exposure to the cutting edge and all the bolts that are in it, so make sure that everything is good there as well. Okay, Sebastian, you can turn on the lights. Okay, and left signal and right signal. Okay, perfect. All right, lower the blade. And is it on float? Okay, so at this stage here, this is when we will put down, some of them are hard, but we got to make sure we get them all the way down. Alright guys, so now we're going to take the plow off the truck, and there's a procedure for this, and the reason for that is so that we can make sure that it goes back on easy next time you go to hook it back up. So number one thing we're going to do is we're going to drop the center pin. So we just pull. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to pull this pin, which will drop the center post, and then just pull this lever out a bit so that when you do push it back in, it doesn't lock that. You'll pick up the center post until it latches like it just did. This is popped back in, it's all spring loaded. We'll come around to the front. We made sure that the blade is straight and the wings are retracted in. The ram is down in the middle. Then you just simply push forward a little bit, takes the pressure off of the pins, pull out on the handle, and the plow is now disconnected. Now what we do is we will disconnect the electrical. Pulling apart the two connections. I'll move around to the other side. Get this one. And the plow is now free. Alright guys, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that we put the electrical connections in a safe spot so that they're not pointed up and filling up with water and ice and greening out on us. Unfortunately, this is an LED headlight, so they don't fit up into these connectors. What we're going to do is we're just going to point it down and into the frame here so that it is not going to sit in a puddle of water and it's pointed down. This one here, we will just maneuver it into the middle, pointing down, and then over on the truck side, we're just going to cap these. And if there's some room to move it in somewhere, we'll just pop it in. We won't do that with this one here, so we don't want to wreck the grill, but it's capped anyway, so we're looking pretty good. At this point here, it's probably in your best interest to just do a little quick circle check on the plow. Make sure that we don't have any issues, because if we do, we can now report it into our maintenance chat and we can have Nick come out and take a look at it. All right, thanks very much. Hey guys, welcome to our Salter tutorial. We're just going to talk about some of the safety rules and procedures before we use the Salter and after we're finished with it. So number one, when you guys come in to start a shift, first thing you're going to want to do before you use the Salter and load it with salt is give it a quick inspection, take a look inside of it, make sure that it's clear, and if there's any snow in it, that'll have to get cleared. Normally we can open up the chute here and turn it on and it'll clear it, but even if there's no salt or snow in it, we typically would like to turn the Salter on for at least a minute or two, allow it to start moving before we drop a couple of tons of salt on it. So that's super important that we warm everything up before we drop salt into it. We've gone over these Salters with a fine-tooth comb. There's put a lot of new parts on them. They've got new bearings, new connectors, new belts, and some new motors. So they're all in good working order to start the season, and hopefully we're going to be super reliable with them. But you guys are going to need to do your part to make sure that they remain reliable. So again, before loading it, take a minute, walk around it, make sure everything is in good shape with it. we want to also check our chute before and after each shift. So to check our chute, we're going to pull this pin on the bottom, then this one, and then we can open this up. And we'll be able to look inside the chute. We'll be able to see the shaft, the spinner, the conveyor belt, and everything there. So give it a good visual inspection, and if it needs cleaned out, make sure it is turned off, and you can give it a knock with a rubber mallet and clean everything out of it. Okay, so again, now we've finished our shift and we've gone and salted everything. We're going to want to open this up as well again and make sure everything is clear, so that if it gets super cold before you guys get back in again, that nothing freezes solid in here. So that's important. This here needs to be kept clear as well, because if we have the salt buildup on this, it will start corroding the wires, and it's just the biggest pain. Typically when we load salt, there's a lot that will fall onto this area and into the back here. We want to make sure we clear that. Keep this area clean. This here is where all of our connections and control modules are, so we don't want that stuff corroding. So for clearing out our salters at the end of each shift, open up that chute if you still got some salt in there, turn down your spinner so that it's not shooting it all over the place, and just back into our piles and unload. Make sure that the salter is cleared out. A lot of times it'll get stuck on the sides, especially in the warmer weather, which we seem to be having a lot more of these days. You just need to bang it, either with your hand lately or with a rubber mallet lately, and usually that will take care of it. If it's been a particularly heavy salting, we're going to want to, and everything's a mess, we're definitely going to want to take this thing to a coin wash and clean stuff off. You can open this up here, open this, hit inside, get the conveyor clean and stuff like that. The other thing we want to do is make sure that it happens every year where salt gets dumped down the side, but we can't leave it there. It's no good for the trucks, and it just gets hard, and it's a problem. So we're going to want to make sure that we have these trucks cleaned out on the sides. And if you could come up to the front here with me. So another thing, a problem area here, is the front of the salters. So salt gets built up here. Even if we don't dump it, it just comes out of the conveyor and it forms a mound, and it will get hard, and eventually it will stop the salter from working. So we need to keep this area clear as well. And also we need to grease the bearings on the front of this on a regular, at least once a week, if not more, depending upon the usage. All right, guys, so one more thing here is the safety side of this stuff. So at the end of every day, we want people to go home, sleep in their beds, be with their families. Nobody gets hurt. Everybody goes safe. Please do not put your hands into a moving spinner or conveyor belt. You have to watch moving parts. They will take your fingers off. Your arm gets jammed in there, it could pull your arm off. So those things are an absolute, we have to be careful with those. Another thing, and now this here is kind of simple, but when you are taking a look in the side of the truck or in the salter, we have to climb up to look into it. Make sure you're holding on tight. Grab two hands contact at all times. If you're climbing up on the tire or if you're climbing up on the bumper, just be careful. It's too easy to slip and fall and hurt yourself. All right? Thanks, guys. Hey guys, so this video will talk about loading salters and salters. It goes pretty much for all of our machines doing the same thing with it. When you're pushing into a pile, you push it in a low gear and you lift up as you're pushing in. That'll allow you to fill your bucket much easier. When you're traveling with a bucket full of salt, you keep your bucket low. You line yourself up to where you're going to be loading it, just like this would be, keeping it low with the salt in it. And then once you're at the vehicle, you will lift it up and then just slowly dump it into it. And the reason for that is so that a high load will make the machine unstable. So we just want to avoid stuff like that. It goes the same with all of our loaders and all of our skid steers. So I'm just going to hop in the machine now, and I'm going to show you proper procedure. All right, guys, make sure you have your seatbelts on at all times too, please. Guys, so when we're loading the trucks with the skid steer, it's a little bit different. Same procedure, you keep your loads low until you get closer to the vehicle, then you lift it up and move in. It's much safer with the skid steer to not overload your bucket. They are definitely a little tippier than the loaders. Another thing that we have happen and has happened in the past is we're concentrating so much on putting the salt into the hopper that we're not paying attention to the tires anymore. And now the tires are up against the side of the truck, and they're either slowly caving in the side of the fender or ripping off an exhaust tip or something like that. So we want to be super careful with that. I'm going to demonstrate just how close that you have to get to the truck with it to dump the salt. But again, just make sure that you're paying close attention to the dumping the salt and the tires down below. Okay? Thanks, guys. Hey guys, so we're going to talk about our loaders now and the plows and changing the buckets and the blades. So when you guys arrive to site, the first thing you're going to want to do is a quick circle check of the machines. So we do have a card in each one of the machines that will give you a quick rundown of what you should be doing, but I'm just going to go through it really quickly with you. So the very first thing we want to do when we show up is just make sure that the very basics are still okay on it. So you're going to want to check the tires, make sure that they're fully inflated, make sure like there's no puddles underneath the machine from a hydraulic leak or a fuel leak or something like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the back of the machine, lift the engine compartment cover, and turn on the battery disconnect. Okay, so we're just going to lift the cover. And the battery disconnect is usually in the back right corner of the John Deeres and on the side of the Cats. So we'll just turn that on and away we go. And one more thing, guys, is we plug these machines in once it starts to get cold. So we got to make sure that we disconnect these before we fire them up and roll up the cord. All right, guys, so to make things easier on us, what we've done is we've put on the screw-on connectors. So we're not fighting with the push-on ones in the minus temperatures. Usually it takes 2 wrenches to put these things on just so that they're good and snug, but typically when we have a problem with a wing not working, it's because one of these things isn't tight enough. So just make sure that we've snugged them up. We don't have to crank them, but they got to be snug. Same thing with the electrical connectors. Just plug those things in, give them a wiggle, make sure it's locked down, and you shouldn't have any problems with it. Another thing is some of the hoses on the other machines are a little bit longer. Got to make sure that they're not stuck in any pinch points. And now we move on to testing and starting the machine. All right, guys, so here's some of the highlights from our safety circle check. We've unplugged the outlet from the back of the machine. We've checked and made sure we have enough fuel. The emergency lights are running and working. We've checked our washer fluid, attachment connection. Everything is securely connected. Nothing hanging from the machine. Nothing visibly wrong. The tires are filled and secured. No loose bolts and no puddles under the machine. And at this point here, what we're going to do is we're going to fire it up, and in the cold, we're going to leave it running for at least 5 minutes before we start to operate it at all. And again, to help warm it up after a couple of minutes, we can just raise and lower the boom a little bit. Okay? Okay guys, so now we're going to test the plow and make sure that it's working after we've let the machine warm up. I'm just going to lift it up. And left and right. Give it a little bit of gas. Test the wings. Alright, everything seems to be good. Now we're ready to rumble. So we're going to talk a little bit about the gators with the plows and the salters on them, and just a quick run through on them and a bit about safety. Each gator and piece of equipment that we have, including all of our trucks, will have a safety check card on them. And it's mandatory that we go through these things before we start our night. For the gators, I want you to remember something. These are basically just small vehicles, small trucks or cars or whatever, and can cause an awful lot of damage to people. And because we're operating them on sidewalks, we have to be ever vigilant about making sure that we know our surroundings and are keeping an eye open for all pedestrians. And having said that, now we're going to move on to the plow. Just a quick run through on the plow. These are fully articulating plows. Now we're going to start with the plow. These things are pretty straightforward. They operate up and down, left and right. The connections on them are just a couple of electrical connections. They are fully self-contained on the plow side. The procedure for these are written on the sides here for taking them on and off. And the biggest thing with these is making sure that the electrical connections under here are plugged in properly and they are kept clean at all times. So if we disconnect the plow and we're using it, we have to make sure that we've got the safety connectors in those so that they're not getting blasted by the weather and salt. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk quickly about the salters. These things again are pretty straightforward. The biggest thing for these is making sure we keep them clean. Don't leave salt in them at the end of a shift. They have to be emptied. You don't want to run into problems on your next shift because we left salt in it, and when we go to fire it up, the salt is all stiffened and now it's burnt out the motor. So keep it clean and you should have no problems with it at all. These are conveyor and auger. So when this thing is operating, you should never ever put your hands inside of it or near the spinner. You'll probably lose a finger if you do. So just keep away from it when it's operating. Everything should be good. All right guys, so the sidewalk gator checklist goes as follows. Making sure that there's no puddles underneath it, nothing is leaking, all the tires are fully pumped up and everything like that. we're going to want to do just a quick walk around of it before you started, or before you guys started or do anything. So make sure you do that. Check your straps on your salters, check the plow connections, check everything. Make sure your emergency lights are working. Nothing visibly wrong with the machine, nothing hanging down from it. And that is pretty much it. Make sure it's filled up with fuel. The only other thing is that when you're done with it at the end of the night, please make sure that we do the battery disconnect switch. These things are all GPSed, and the GPS will kill the battery if we leave it running. All right, thanks very much. So we're going to talk a little bit about our sidewalk tractors. In particular, right now, we're going to talk about our 1025R. Hey guys, just going to talk to you a little bit about our sidewalk tractors, about the safety of them and policies and procedures. Again, every machine that we have has a safety checklist that you're supposed to go through before using the machine. So these things here are pretty straightforward, easy to operate, but they still have moving components. So you're going to need to be aware of them, especially in the back where the salter is. It's a 3-point hitch, and it has a drive shaft that turns an auger. Your hands cannot be anywhere near these things when they're running, or anybody else that you're working with. So everything always has to be kept clear of that when you're operating the machines. The plow on the front of it is a 60-inch quick attach blade, and it is not the fastest for moving up and down and left and right. So you need to time yourself with these things so that you're not overshooting or not undershooting what you're trying to accomplish. The plows stay on these all winter long. The salters stay on these all winter long. We do not take them off. When you get into these machines, you're going to have to make sure that you're full of fuel. We have no leaks underneath the machine. Tires are all filled with air. We operate on sidewalks with these things as well, so you're going to want to make sure that when you are plowing, you're not just concentrating on what you're doing, but you're concentrating on your surroundings, because our buildings have lots of entrances and exits, and you need to have eyes in the back of your head pretty much just to make sure that we keep our customers safe. As for the operating the machine, the plow has a few functions. One of the biggest ones that you're going to use that maybe some people don't know is even here is the float function. And then to operate the float function, all you have to do is push all the way forward on the plow controller and leave it there, and it will be in the float function. And there, when you go up and down over bumps, the plow will float up and down with the contours of the land. Other than that, keeping it clean, keeping it, making sure the lights are all working, and running through your checklist before you get going with things, and you guys should have carefree and easy nights. Thanks. Guys, so here's the drive shaft that I was talking about. This moves at several hundred RPMs per minute when it's operating the conveyor. So you absolutely want to keep your hands away from that. If you see something rattling or you want to check something, turn everything off, because that is dangerous. You can grab clothes and get wrapped up into it, pull your arm into things. It can just cause a whole ton of trouble. Stay away from it when it's running. Inside, the drive shaft drives the auger, which will pull the salt down in and drop it. Again, these things have teeth on them, and if it's rotating, it can just drag your hand in or drag a piece of clothing into it, and you won't be able to stop it. It's just too powerful. So never put your hands in when this is operating or even on. All right? Thanks.
I'm Samantha McManus, Operations Manager of Inline Landscaping. Sure, you've all heard enough of me already, but we're going to talk about basic maintenance and housekeeping, everyone's favorite topic. But no one wants to get into a dirty machine or truck, so it's very important that we all abide to these sets of rules that we have for making sure when everyone gets to site and they get in their truck or equipment, they're happy to be in there. You basically want to leave whatever you're using in the shape that you would want to arrive and get it at. Did that make sense?
Absolutely.
So let's start with something easy that I'm sure we can all agree on. Garbage. If you make garbage, get rid of it. So on our sites, there will be a designated garbage spot, whether it's a salt bin that has a garbage bag in it or an actual garbage bin by your salt dome. There is a location for you to put your garbage at the shift end. So your coffee cups, stuff you've used to wipe the dash down, whatever the case may be, please take it and dispose of it before you leave your shift. Wiping down things. So, we all are drinking coffee while we're working, and we know that these trucks bounce around like crazy. So there's coffee dribbles all over the center console and whatnot. So that's one thing that would be nice if we could start doing. Just give it a quick wipe if you've made a big mess or anything like that. It's pretty much unavoidable. It's going to happen, so clean up after yourselves. And then the salt as well. The salt dust and everything that gets put into the trucks because the window's down while the truck's getting loaded, or you've got salt dust on your sleeves or your boots. At the end of your shift, just take the mat, give it a shake. If you've got salt on the dash, that salt dust on any of the components in your truck or your equipment, just give it a quick wipe down. There are supplies bins at all sites, and in those supplies bins you will find automotive wipes in a little container. So every once in a while, take the time to give it a wipe so that it's a nice and clean truck or equipment for the next person coming in.
And also, please, don't put salty gloves on the dash or on the steering columns or the carpet or the seats. Just keep them on the floor mats.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. You get in your truck or your equipment and you've got salty gloves on, take them off before you touch the wheel. Because you'll feel on the wheels that we're all wearing through that leather, and that's just going to get gross, and we don't want that. So take your gloves off before you start operating. Or put on a pair of clean, safe driving gloves. Washer fluids. Washer fluid, it's not a crazy big deal, but there's nothing worse than getting halfway out to the site you're on your way to and you're out of washer fluid. And what if your jug in the back of your truck is empty or whatnot? So if you leave the truck full of washer fluid and you're just checking in on that every once in a while, or the piece of equipment, then you won't run into that issue. It's a safety hazard. If you get caught on the highway without washer fluid in a snowstorm, there's mud that gets smeared all over the window and then you can't see what you're doing and you've got a massive metal blade on the front of you. So fuel kind of goes with the washer fluid. Don't leave your truck or your piece of equipment under 3/4 full. If you're 3/4 full or higher, it's not worth a trip to the gas station for that. But if you're under that 3/4, then it's worth it because we never know what we're going to be coming in for next. If it's just a quick salt run, half a tank's no problem. But if it ends up snowing tomorrow and that truck is at half a tank or less, now whoever's operating that snowstorm has to take the time to go and fuel up, and we might not have that kind of time. So make sure you're always leaving it 3/4 full or more. And salt on the outsides of the trucks and equipment. This is something that's been an issue for quite a long time
for as long as we've been doing this.
Yeah. So cleaning the salt off of the salters is so important. It might seem silly because it's a salter, but in order for these things to keep doing what we're doing and for you to show up and everything to work properly the next day, we can't have frozen salt chunks all over the salter. Also for road safety, on the top of all salters there's a grate, and often you'll find big chunks of salt that get caught on top of that grate. So before you take off after you've loaded salt, always take a look on top of your salter. If there's salt chunks, take them off, toss them, crush them, put them in, whatever the case may be, but don't take off with salt chunks on the top of your salter. And don't leave salt chunks for the next person as well, because then when they go to dump salt, it's going to get all stuck on the top. That's an issue we've had a lot of problems with. And then at the back of the salter, between the salter spinner control box and then the actual container that holds the salt, there's a gap there where the conveyor runs, and a lot of the times people will leave salt in between that space and it gets all clumped up, and now the conveyor belt is having a hard time moving. Or now you can't move your gate for setting your salt quantity. Right? So make sure that gets cleaned out. As soon as you load salt, especially if you're using a loader bucket, it's inevitable that there's going to be salt all over that. Take a second, get out, clean it. As well as the spinner, make sure your spinner isn't getting all gummed up with salt. Take a mallet to the side of the metal part of the spinner and you can tap it to get salt chunks out. There's also a lever that you can pull and spin out your spinner just to make sure that there's nothing caught up in it. And if anything, you can always open things up and take a look. But just every once in a while, make sure that component is staying clean, because once we get into colder temperatures, then we'll start running into equipment malfunction issues because of that.
Yeah, and that'll just add to your shift. You'll be out there for extra hours trying to get things done, and it adds to the stress of everything as well. So we just can avoid that by a little bit of maintenance.
Yeah, it doesn't take long, and if you make it part of your routine, eventually it's second nature. Checking the grease nipples on equipment and salters. So we do have an on-staff mechanic now, and he is going to be going around and greasing everything. So greasing isn't going to have to be part of your regular maintenance. However, it does not hurt to take a look and make sure everything is looking okay. If you're about to head into a really long snowstorm and you see that you've got some grease nipples that don't look like they've been touched up, touch them up. It's going to save you headache in the long run. You don't know how long you're going to be working that storm. So, just double check, and if things aren't getting done, also report it to your supervisor, and we'll make sure those things start getting looked after. So in the topic of reporting things to your supervisor, so the way we're going to run reporting mechanical issues or potential damage for our trucks, plows, equipment, and whatnot, if you see something, say something. So step one, you notice it, investigate it yourself, just to get all the information you possibly can, then go to your supervisor. Your supervisor will then make sure our on-staff mechanic knows, so when he's doing his next rounds, he can attend to it. Or if we have a snowstorm coming up, he can make sure he schedules that in so that that piece of equipment is working for that snowstorm. Our on-staff mechanic is here to make sure that we run smoothly throughout the winter. So when you see something and you say something, you're preventing further issues down the line.
Hey guys, so this is probably the most important video that we're going to make today. It's about safety and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different aspects of it, starting with the trucks and our green books, our MTO books. They have to get filled out. You must do the circle checks on the trucks, and if you're towing a trailer, a circle check has to be done on that. And it can't just be a glance, it has to be a real one. You need to check and make sure the lights are all working. You need to check and make sure that the tires are all inflated. Everything has to be done properly. Grab those tires and give them a shake, make sure that they're not ready to come off. Check the bolts on them, check the wiring, check everything. This is for your safety and other people on the road as well. The worst thing that would be, somebody getting hurt or killed. About the safety thing, we like to work in teams and pairs. Even if you're not with that person, they might be still part of your safety team that night. So you're just checking in with them and communicating with them back and forth and stuff like that. Like maybe you'll see them when you're loading your salt, but you won't see them again for the rest of the night. But you still want to check in when everybody's going home, make sure everybody gets to go home safely. It's super important. Keep your phones on you at all times. If you get out of the truck, you get out of your piece of equipment, even if it's just to go check something, it takes nothing to slip and fall and to be incapacitated in a parking lot. If you've got your cell phone in your pocket or your hand or whatever, you can maybe hopefully call for some help. But it is just something that we've always tried to make sure that everybody does, because it has saved people in the past from maybe laying in a parking lot injured and waiting for somebody to discover. Operator safety. So we're operating our trucks and machines and gators and sidewalk machines in public areas. So we have to make sure that our areas are not only clear for them to work in, but while we're clearing it, that we're not endangering anybody or ourselves. So you have to have eyes in the back of your head. Even in the middle of the night, you're not expecting anybody to be there. I can't tell you how many times I've had people surprise, show up behind us, even if it's just security. They're coming to check and see what's going on or whatever, almost run them over with the loader because they just pull right in behind you thinking that you're gonna see everything. So always have your head on a swivel. Fuel jugs. We have designated areas for fuel jugs on our sites, and that's the only spot that they can be stored. If we store them outside of those areas, it's they could get punctured or damaged, and we could also get in trouble. So we want to make sure that they are in their designated spot. If you open it up and you're fueling something up, don't just leave the spout on the outside thinking you're going to come back to use it again. Close it up, because if it's snowing or raining or whatever it is,
You know, it's just going to get wet, and then the snow, ice, water will get into the gas, and it creates problems for us. Lock boxes and fences that have gate locks on them and stuff like that. You know, if we unlock something, we have to make sure when we're done that it is locked back up properly. We don't want to be responsible for things going missing or people coming in and causing damage or stealing stuff. You know, if we've left a gate open or a lockbox for our keys for the machines open, you know, we don't want to be responsible for that. So if you make sure we've done everything we can to make sure that it's closed up and secure, then, you know, there's nothing more we can do for that. But it's an important thing that we check it. Vehicle charge stations, they're in parking lots everywhere now. We have several that have them in it as well. And frequently people will charge their cars or vehicles, and then they will leave the electrical cables lying half into the parking lot. And we come up and we have to back drag that area so that we can clear the snow from it. And the cables are sitting out in the parking lot, and we've actually dragged them right out and off of the charge stations in the past. So, you know, we have to make sure that if we're clearing around a charge station that the lines are all safely up and secure, because nobody else is going to do it. If you see something, no matter what it is, whether it's on our customer's property, if it's even if it's a safety thing and it's something that we can help out with, you know, we want to make sure that we're a part of that. If it's for ourselves and it's a safety thing, or something is breaking on a machine, or what, doesn't matter what it is. If something isn't right, say something. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's not right, report it. It can make a difference for somebody somewhere along the line, and we're not all just out there for ourselves. We're out there for the company, we're out there for our customers, we're out there for our co-workers. Here's a big one, and this will catch a lot of people and a lot of different times. When you're plowing, if you're in an area plowing or whatever, and you've made note of obstacles within the area and you're backing up and you don't see it anywhere and you think you're clear, you're not. The reason you don't see it is because it is immediately behind you and you're about to hit it. So if something has disappeared from your site and you're not sure where it is, stop, get out, make sure that you're not about to hit it, because I can't tell you how many times that has happened to people. I've heard that story dozens of times over the years. Finally, and this here is the biggest, the most important thing that I have to say today. Everybody gets to go home safe. Nobody takes chances. Nobody puts anybody else in danger. Be smart, because a lot of times it's going to be on you, and we don't want anybody getting hurt or killed. Everybody gets to go home. All right? Well, I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you all. Thanks.